enjoy the smell and taste of fresh baked bread? Well, learning how to make bread or some other special dish probably took several tries. You may have even felt that you'd never learn. But if you kept at it, you eventually pulled a lovely loaf of bread out of the oven and enjoyed a feeling of accomplishment as well as the tasty bread. Learning how to manage money and legal problems can give you that same sense of accomplishment. You may have to try several methods and ask a lot of questions, but if you keep at it, you will be able to successfully manage the financial and legal problems facing you or your care receiver.
The Western Kentucky University Gerontology Program presents Taking Charge of Business.
When you try a new dish, you need to know what ingredients you have in your house, what recipes you can choose among, and who to ask for help if you have a question. You have to know the same things for managing money. In this videotape, we'll discuss the basic ingredients for successful money management, knowing what resources are available, knowing what your choices are, and knowing who to ask for help. First, let's discuss why you even need to bother with money management. You are here because you are serving as a caregiver to another person. Maybe all you need to do right now is care for the person's health or physical needs. The care receiver may be able to make many decisions for themselves. If so, this is good, because the more control the person has over decisions, the better that person will feel. Other caregivers, however, will find that they must help the care receiver make decisions and handle their finances. Insurance forms have to be filed, checks have to be signed, and medicines and other goods bought. Finally, for some care receivers, plans for the future have to be made. Where are they going to live when or if you cannot care for them any longer? What should be done with their money in the meantime? What will happen to their possessions after they're gone? And how are these decisions going to be made? These kinds of problems and questions can seem overwhelming if you've never had to deal with them before. You may feel angry that you're forced to make money decisions for the care receiver. You may be confused by all the paperwork and bewildering instructions. It doesn't seem fair that in addition to becoming a full-time nurse, cook, and housekeeper, you may have to add accountant and lawyer to the list of roles you perform. If other family members are involved, you may have to be a diplomat too. It may be hard to believe now, but like baking bread, even paperwork can be performed with a sense of doing your best to help your care receiver. It'll take some practice, so be patient with yourself.
You have a lot of different feelings. You think everything's left up to you now, you know, to make the decisions and all that. It's hard, but still, you know you have to do it.
Money management. It's just a fancy way of saying making choices. Choices are being made about the care receiver's money. By a computer, if the money's sitting in a bank. By a family member. Or perhaps by the government or a judge. And in some cases by the care receiver. Choices can be made consciously, or you can let fate take control. By consciously making choices, you can better control where the money goes, and you can make sure that it benefits the care receiver. You won't get very good bread if you just throw in whatever's in the cupboard, and you won't get any bread at all if you wait for ingredients to combine by themselves. Well, in the same way, someone needs to take an active role in managing money for the care receiver. Otherwise, you and your care receiver could end up without any resources. Your first step as a caregiver accountant is to find out what you have to work with, to check the cupboard for ingredients, so to speak. If you didn't talk about business matters before your care receiver needed help, you may have difficulty finding all the papers, and you'll have to search for them. Check with local banks, look in shoe boxes and search drawers. As you find documents, you need to keep a record or a master list of the papers. A master list is vital for success in making money decisions. What should you record on your master list? When you've gathered all the papers, the first thing to write down is where the person's money is coming from and how much there is of it. Each source of money is also known as an asset. Your care receiver may be getting money from Social Security benefits, a company pension plan or plans, an individual retirement plan, social service income or government plans, large possessions like a home, car, a collection of antiques, etc., interest from savings or dividends from stocks, and there may be other sources as well. In addition to each source of income, also write down how much they get each month and how reliable the source is. For example, will the amount change if the spouse dies? And is there a limit to how much the person will receive from each source? You should also record who owns each resource in the eyes of the law. For example, whose name is on the house deed or car title. Carefully record where the legal papers are physically located and how to get to them. For example, is the car title in the kitchen drawer or in the safety deposit box? Who has the keys and the right to get into the safety deposit box? Finally, for some resources, you need to list where the thing is actually located. You may need to record that the car is in the eldest son's garage. Your master list should have 5 items for each resource or asset. What the asset is and its value. Who owns the asset? Where the legal papers are, how to get the legal papers, and where the asset itself is located. The master list will need to be updated each year, or as major life events change the care receiver's resources. You can make better choices when you have accurate information on which to base them. Your master list will help you with the next step of money management, making choices. You can't bake sesame bread if you don't have sesame seeds, right? Thus, a review of your master list may rule out certain choices. Now, on the other hand, your master list may help you to anticipate problems and plan ways around them. For example, sometimes pensions can be taken in a lump sum for a set number of years. More money may be received each month. But what if the person lives longer than the set time? Also, under some plans, if the wage earner dies first, the surviving spouse is left without enough to live on. Planning ahead is the key to successful money management. The money choices you make depend on for whom you are making them. A 20-year-old single person confined to a wheelchair, but otherwise alert, has different needs than an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient with a spouse. As your care receiver situation changes, you'll need to rethink your choices. Better yet, anticipate those changes and plan for them. Your master list will help you with these tasks. Caregivers report 4 major choices in which they are involved: wills, housing, health insurance, and legal responsibility. By considering choices early, you should be able to make better decisions and avoid later problems. Let's talk about wills for a minute. Many problems arise because a will is not made. In fact, unless a legal transfer will is prepared, there's no guarantee that the person's resources will be divided the way you expected. If there is no will, you may have an unpleasant surprise waiting, because without a will, property is divided according to state law. A home or a business may have to be sold in order to pay taxes and other costs, and the process could take a long time. In the meantime, on what does the surviving spouse live? And if a home is sold, where will the person live? Encourage care receivers to have a will made, if at all possible. Wills must be made and signed while the person is competent. When there is a will, there is a way for people to have a choice over their property and the future of their loved ones.
I had our will changed and something should happen to me, that the lawyer would take care of our business.
The type of will we've been describing, the transfer will, determines how property will be divided. This type of will and a document called a living will are sometimes confused. A living will relates to your health. Just as a regular transfer will lays out a person's plans for their money, a living will describes plans for their physical care. For example, in a living will, a person describes the care they would want if an illness keeps them from communicating their preferences. The family and medical staff can use this will to decide what kind of medical care to give according to the patient's wishes. Although it's not legally binding, this simple document can help the family make decisions in the face of serious illness. A second area of concern to caregivers is helping the care receiver to select housing. Possible choices for housing consist of keeping the person in their own home, using retirement housing or life care centers, or calling upon a nursing home. Most care receivers prefer to remain in their home with the familiar sights and sounds. Staying in the home is associated with a longer and healthier life. Keeping a house may also protect their resources or savings.
Well, we own our home, and fortunately we had it paid for. And I've had so many difficulties. I had considered of selling it and getting an apartment, but I've been advised that it might be a little security for me too if something happened.
For some, their isolation and health may require a move to housing designed to meet the special care needs of older people. These needs may include trained medical staff, a physical environment that's suited to physical problems, or scheduled social activities. Such housing may be retirement housing, life care centers, or nursing homes. Retirement or senior housing is much like a condominium. You own the property, maintenance and social activities are provided, but there may be no health care available. Life care centers provide for several levels of care, including long-term care. People can stay within the same facility and move to a section that provides the level of physical care that they need. Finally, for persons who need professional medical care, a nursing home may be necessary for either temporary or long-term care. This kind of care is expensive and it requires evaluation of the costs and quality. However, nursing home care may be less costly than staying at home and hiring all the needed care.
As long as I was taking care of it, I didn't have any financial problems other than just medication and so forth, and of course I had that taken care of. It wasn't until later that I ran into financial problems. When I had to hire somebody to help me take care of her, hire somebody to stay in 5 days and 5 nights a week, then we ran into quite a bit of expense.
You will need to ask questions of professionals in order to determine the best housing for your care receiver. For example, what kind of down payment is needed? Will more care be available if the person needs it? In order to evaluate the best housing choice for long-term care, you will need to understand your care receiver's health insurance. There's only time here to summarize the various types: nursing home insurance, government insurance, and private insurance. Nursing home insurance is fairly new. It provides coverage in case of a long-term illness, and there are great differences between policies. Government insurance comes in two forms: Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare requires a monthly payment in order to have coverage for hospital stays and additional payments for medical care other than hospital stays. Medicaid is available to people who are unable to pay and have few resources. Your care receiver may also be eligible for benefits through the Veterans Administration. Private health insurance programs vary a lot. You'll need to shop around for a program that'll fill your needs. There are two general types of private insurance appropriate for older persons: major medical insurance for catastrophic illness, and Medigap insurance, which covers some of what Medicare and Medicaid don't cover. As you can see, there are a lot of options available for providing insurance coverage for your care receiver. However, just as you have probably tried some rather complicated cooking recipes, so too you will be able to manage this as well. Finally, the fourth problem caregivers face is a legal issue. Should I have legal responsibility for the care receiver, and how do I take it? Legal responsibility is needed when the care receiver's memory and judgment become poor, and a caregiver needs to make decisions for them. As with managing money, you need to plan ahead, since some types of legal responsibility can only be taken before the person loses their memory and judgment. The process also varies from state to state. Probably the simplest way to give a caregiver the legal right to make decisions is by having the care receiver give power of attorney while they're still competent. Power of attorney gives one person the right to make financial decisions for another person, such as depositing checks and making insurance payments. And the agreement can be for the long term or only for a limited time period. You may want short-term power of attorney if a person's going to have surgery. If the patient has mental deterioration, then power of attorney will be needed. To arrange for power of attorney, you need to contact a lawyer. There are several other ways to have legal responsibility for your care receiver. You may want to consider having a court-appointed guardian, becoming a representative payee, or set up a living trust managed by a trustee.
I went to see a lawyer, and he advised me to go ahead while he was, you know, where he knew what was going on and what to tell me to do, and he was able to sign, and he gave me power of attorney, and we had already had our wills made before he was diagnosed.
About the time my wife was getting seriously ill, I had to go to the hospital for major surgery. So I didn't know what to do. That was when I had to hire somebody to stay with her. So in case anything happened to me, I had the executor of our wills and my attorney come out, and we both signed over power of attorney to both of them in case something happened to me and something happened to her, then they could, or vice versa, then they could take over.
There are a lot of choices to make when managing your care receiver's finances. At first, it may seem very confusing and as difficult as trying to bake that first loaf of bread from scratch. With patience and experience, you'll get better at it. You may have turned to a cookbook or your mother for help with those first loaves. So who do you turn to for help with these financial matters? Well, with your master list of resources, you'll be able to get good advice from a number of resources, such as books, other caregivers, organizations, and professionals. So, first of all, read. Go to your library or bookstore and find books about managing money and about special monetary needs of older persons. There's also a number of magazines which focus on concerns of older adults. Newspapers frequently carry articles about the latest changes in insurance or care facilities. Unfortunately, resources vary from town to town, so you'll have to do the legwork to identify what is available where you are. You do not need to do it alone, however. Locate people who have been serving as caregivers and ask them how they have solved various problems and where they found information. But remember to change those solutions to fit you and your care receiver's needs. Find someone who is also trying to learn how to be a money manager for another person and work together to figure out forms or legal language. Check with organizations related to your care receiver's illness for up-to-date information. Professionals are an important source of help. Ask a lawyer, a social worker, accountant, banker, or undertaker. Ask questions before spending money on housing, insurance, or even advice.
My youngest daughter, she's helped me a lot with that. She's worked for lawyers. And
So see, these sport meetings, people say, what do you go for? It just makes things worse, harder on you. What it is, and you learn something. And I think everybody needs it.
have a good attorney. And if you have an executor will, have them together and coordinate everything.
You may get frustrated because no one will tell you exactly what to do. But they can't, because everyone's situation is unique. You will have to get enough information from informed sources to make the best decisions that you can. And you'll need to check regularly for changes in rules. Keep records of all the money you spend for your care receiver so you'll be clear on where it goes. With time, you will be able to successfully manage your care receiver's money and achieve some satisfaction. You'll also be able to avoid many problems by planning ahead and seeing that wills are made, proper insurance purchased, housing arranged, and appropriate legal responsibility obtained. Remember, be patient with yourself in learning this skill. Make your master list, and by all means, ask for help when you need it. Good luck in taking charge of business.